All right. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Shabbat Shalom. And a Happy New Year. It's a little bit, it's always like, I notice that in my circle, people are a little skittish about saying Happy New Year. You know, they'll say like, oh, Happy Gentile New Year. Or the Gregorian calendar, like, just to make clear, like, this is not our New Year. We have our New Year, and this is not it. Don't get it twisted. I always think that's a little over anxious because, in fact, the first rabbinic formulation of the New Year says Arba Rosh Hashanah. There are 4 New Years, different starts to the year, agricultural cycles and tithing cycles and coronations and marking the calendar, just like we have different starts to the financial year, or like, tax season or the educational cycle. And every New Year, every one of those ways of marking time is a kind of it presents us with a kind of crossing over, like an opportunity to reflect on the past and to look forward to the future. Rosh Hashanah and this New Year is a time we make resolutions, right? We're gonna change ourselves. We're gonna change everything. Right? Everything's gonna be different in the new year. There's always this sense of hope and possibility as we stand on the precipice of the new year. This New Year, this calendar, the Gregorian New Year, it generally corresponds with another crossing over that we do in our calendar, the crossing over from the book of Genesis to the book of Exodus. That almost always takes place around this time. So we're moving from the complicated stories of family formation into the epic drama of nation building. So we find here in this week's Parsha, in Parshat Vayigash, in chapter 46, the descent into Egypt. So it's a little bit like a prelude to Exodus, a foreshadowing. And there's even some of the same exact language that we will see beginning the book of Exodus. We see already in this week's Parsha, Ve'ele Shmot Bnei Yisrael, and these are the names of the children of Israel, Habayim Mitzrayma, who came into Egypt, Yaakov Uvanav, Jacob and his children, and then all the names are listed. We list all the names of those who went down. So as they begin that descent, as they're heading down into Egypt, Jacob receives a special message from God, Bamarot Laila, in a night vision. Jacob always seems to receive his prophecies at night. You remember that first encounter at that night under the ladder. It's always at night that he's talking to God. Maybe that's true for some of you as well. And God says, Al Tira, fear not, Yaakov, because I'm going to make you into a goy gadol, into a great nation. I know it's terrifying heading into this unknown land, but it will be, ultimately, you will come out a great nation. God says, will go down with you, and then I will eventually bring you up. But this message from God begins with a call, and it's a very special kind of call. Vayomer Elohim l'Yisrael, God said to Israel, B'marot Laila, in that night vision, Vayomer Yaakov, Vayomer Hineni. God said, Jacob, and Jacob said, Hineni, here I am. So what's special about this call? The doubling of the name. Jacob, Yaakov. That only happens 2 other times in the Torah. Are people called twice? Do you know what they are? Abraham, good, right. Abraham, when he's about to perform the command to slaughter his son at the binding of Isaac, suddenly an angel appears from the sky and says, Avram, al tishlach yadcha. Right, don't do it, Avram. And the other one? I think I hear it. Moshe, correct, Moses. God calls Moses to turn and look at the burning bush. Okay, so Abraham, Jacob, and Moses are the only people in the Torah. Samuel also later will get, but it's very rare to get this name doubling. So every time they respond, because they recognize the greatness of that kind of calling, they respond, Hineni. So what is the meaning of such a call? Why does God talks to a lot of people. Why does God sometimes double the name? Hello, hello, Ronit, Ronit, David, David. Why that kind of call? The Midrash Rabbah, gives two basic answers. Says maybe it is Lashon Zeruz, maybe it's the language of urgency, like, come on, listen. Or maybe it's Lashon Chiba, the language of affection. God's saying the name over and over because this Abraham, this Jacob, this Moses is particularly beloved. So there's something about, they get an extra calling. But in context, if we think about those stories, it's really the language of urgency that seems most fitting to explain the doubling of the name. It makes sense, right? We said stopping Abraham in the middle of this, he's about to kill his son, so it's urgent. Abraham, wake up, stop. And so too, Moshe, calling him to the mission which will define the rest of his life, the rest of our history. There's an urgency to both of those callings. But it doesn't really fit that explanation, the urgency here with Jacob. It is, after all, the middle of the night, and there's a long journey down to Egypt. There's nothing particularly about to happen, so there's no real urgency here. So how do we explain the doubling here for Jacob's name? So one of the greatest readers of our Torah in history, the Ramban, Nachmanides, 13th century Spanish, or I guess Catalonian commentator, he answers the question why the doubling of the name by sort of in a roundabout way by asking another great question, which is he answers, why Yaakov? Why is God calling, at this point, why is God saying Jacob, Jacob? Shouldn't it be Yisrael, right? That's his new name. He got a new name that night when he was wrestling. It's again a nighttime battle, right? That night when he was wrestling with the angel, and he gets a name from the angel, Ki sarita im Elohim ve'im anashim v'tuchal, because you have struggled with God and with humans, and you have prevailed, and so your name now is Yisrael. That's his spiritual name. That's his Shem HaNichbad, as the Rambam puts it, his name of honor. Okay. So why doesn't God call out to him if God's communicating with him? Why doesn't God say, Yisrael, Yisrael? So he answers in just an incredibly profound way. He says that, however, he says, Aval, Karo Yaakov, God called him Jacob, lirmoz ki ata lo yisor im Elohim ve'im anashim ve'yuchal. He said, because at this moment, you're not going to struggle with and prevail over God and people and emerge triumphant. That's not this moment. This is not a moment of greatness, of triumph, and of glory. Aval yiyeh beveit avadim. Now you're going to be in the house of bondage. Ad sheyalenu gam olah, until you are raised up from that place. And then he ends by saying, Ki me'ata hagalut tatchil bo, because now, in this moment, the exile begins for you. Okay. So you will not be Yisrael, you will not be triumphant, you will be Yaakov, you will be brought down in this moment. So remember, you're still Jacob. You're still that scrappy struggler who confronts challenges, who experiences pain. And really there's a broader point here that many of our commentators point out in various places, which is that unlike Abraham, unlike Sarah, Jacob never loses his original name when he is renamed by God. Jacob keeps the name Jacob. It's kind of strange. Why didn't he just become Israel? But even there, even at the night of wrestling, as dawn breaks, he's limping away, and the Torah says that the angel had touched Yerech Yaakov, the thigh, the bone of Jacob. It's still Jacob. Yisrael is the one that prevails, but Yaakov is the one that shows the battle wounds. Okay, so that's why the doubling here of the name Yaakov, Yaakov, which is that God is reminding him, Yaakov, Yaakov, you are still Jacob. As you cross over, you still struggle. You will struggle. You show the scars of battles past. And as you descend now into Egypt, as you descend into the book of Exodus, you're carrying all of Genesis with you, all of your history with you. And don't forget that. And maybe we need to remember that as well as we cross over. In every crossing over, in every marking of a new year, there's this temptation to leave the old year behind, to start anew, to change everything, right? We make these resolutions, and then a month later, the resolutions fail. But we are like Jacob. We're carrying everything with us. We're carrying our past, our struggles, all of the struggles of this last year, of this last several years. We're carrying it with us, and we're carrying all of ourselves with us into this new year. We will not be entirely transformed. We will be bringing some of ourselves with us. And that actually is exactly where Nachmanides, the Ramban, goes next. He says that's why, remember, this language of these are the names of the children of Israel. That's why we are called both the children of Israel, but it also says Yaakov ubanav, Jacob and his children, because we will be eventually triumphant in the next chapter. But we will also, and the book of Exodus starts that way, we will also continue to struggle greatly. Because we are Yisrael, right? That's the name of our people. So Israel is us, but that means that Jacob is also us. We have two names. And I would just add that, remember, Ve'ele Shmot, these are the names of the children of Israel. That line is repeated in the book of Exodus, here in Genesis, and then in the book of Exodus, once before the crossing over and once after. So in a sense, God is also calling our names twice, right? All of our names, right? David, Joe, Jeff, Stephen, right? Like all of our names, reminding us of who we are, reminding us of who we can become, what we can do, how we can prevail, but also reminding us that we don't leave ourselves behind as we cross over. We don't leave our pain behind. We don't leave our struggles behind. A lot of us are carrying pain into this new year, are carrying struggle into this new year. And I bless us that it is a year of liberation, a year of Exodus. Right? We are to become the nation of Israel. We have a great destiny ahead of us, but we will always also be the children of Jacob, struggling, battling, and needing God's help. So as we cross over into this new year, let's set intentions. Let's hope for greatness. Let's dream of what we can become and how we can transform. That's what our Rosh Hashanah and this new year offers us. But let's also remember to bring all of ourselves, to honor all of ourselves, our struggle, our shortcomings, our journey. Right? Maya Angelou says, wouldn't take nothing for my journey now. Because we will inevitably continue to struggle. We will have struggles in the coming year. So let's forgive ourselves for that in advance, right? Because we also have to remember that it took all of that struggle to get here. All of Genesis to get to Exodus, to become who we are, to reach our destiny, to reach eventually the promised land. So I wish you, the people of Israel, I wish you, the children of Jacob, a Shabbat Shalom and a Happy New Year.